Hello.
Hey,
Hi. How are you?
good. I can't complain. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So thank you so much for joining In Her Shoes. This is my IG series, and we're interviewing leaders like you who are really like impacting and influencing the world. And I remember, Lucinda, you just big props to you because you were the first person, I think one of my first speaking events that you invited me and asked me to speak at your conference. And I was like, what? And
What?
I was like, who's gonna be there? You're like, oh, Les Brown, like the usual crowd. I was like, oh shoot. Like I was so nervous. It was my first, like honestly, I think it was one of my first speaking events.
You
I was
said
so
that.
nervous on stage. I was like, where's Les Brown? Like it was, so I want to thank you for that because you really like kick-started me to become a speaker and just get more comfortable on stage. And so you're like my first, I always tell people, I'm like, I spoke at Lucinda's conference like years ago.
Yes.
So, and so I want to thank you for coming on. So you are the president of Activate Worldwide. You're an author, you're a conference creator, you've been on tons of media, from BET to Essence to Dr. Oz to Say Show. So yeah, I want you to just introduce yourself to the community. I know there's so many people joining. Thank you guys. Where's everyone tuning in from? I want to know. And how is everyone doing? So while we get this kind of chat started, so tell us more about who you are, Lucinda, and what you do in the world.
Absolutely. Just thank you once again, going back to that story. Kelly, that at that time it was so rough. I was in a transition. My mom literally just passed that May.
That's
And
right.
so your yes came through at the right time, when you're not sure if you should continue on. And I know I just used to watch you on Facebook like, yo, she is so badass. I love her. And so your yes was just like one of those that were like, just keep going. Let's do this. We need this conference. And I was nowhere in the right mind frame, but that's what we're here for, is to connect with each other, to connect the dots and help other people. And so thank you for being my point of light. But, some of the work that I do now is just helping female entrepreneurs to stop being the best kept secret. And that's what we focus on in terms of the marketing and their business and their brand. What can we create so you're no longer the best kept secret? Let's stop hiding all of this awesomeness that you have inside and let's do something with it. And so here we
and I
are.
want to stop you right there because you saw something in me that I didn't at the time, and I was like, you
Wow.
having to speak at your conference, so you just have like an eye for that, and I love that because that's like now that's what you're doing, that's your mission, and you've been doing this for years.
Yeah, I have been doing this for years. I mean, I went full time in my business in 2006, and so my first book was in 2009 and that conference was 2013. So it's a process.
Yeah.
Right. And so of rebranding and figuring out, should I be doing this, or God, did you call me for real to be a part of this? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so so you've been through some tough times, like, probably all of us have. We've all struggled, and, your mom passing away and probably other things that happened. And now with this corona, virus, what have you attributed, like, how have you gotten through? Like, is it prayer? Is it like, tell me some of the things that have gotten you through tough times in life.
Well, one thing, some people say, being an introvert could be a good and a bad thing. And so being an introvert, you're kind of comfortable in your cubby and in your space and in your own cloud. And so using that as a skill to say, all right, let's stay centered, let's stay balanced, let's push ourselves out there, and support other people in the process. But what has kept me grounded, of course, definitely prayer. Every time I wake up, I'm like, God, thank you for giving me breath today, because somebody doesn't have it, or somebody's fighting for it. But I try to stay away from the media as much as I possibly can to kind of keep my spirits up. It felt like watching the media was like a curse, me cursing my day. And it was just bringing on such sadness and depression. And I wanted to hear more of the survival stats than the death stats. And so for me, and what I'm doing for my community is just not moving on, right? Because this is not something that we can move on from. We've never gone through anything like this. You know, this is like a silent war. You know, you're
Yeah.
fighting a war that you can't even see. You don't know what tools to use. And so for me, you know, it's just keeping them encouraged and motivated and meeting them where they are. Yes, you feel bad today. Yes, you are having strange dreams. Yes, I get it. You're frustrated. Yes, you're mad that you have to be a fourth grade teacher today and you ask Siri about the math questions, you know, but it's okay. So just teaching myself and others, you know, let's not be so hard on ourselves in this new transition, but let's
Yeah.
use this as another tool in our backpack of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, so you've been, so you've walked so many different paths, right? Like you're just a creator at heart, whether it's like the amazing conferences that you put on, the book, being in the media, vision boards, like if someone, because now we have the time, and not everyone's going to be creating during this time. I think I talked about this in one of my podcasts. It's like we're all grieving, right, to a certain extent. And I love what you said, like it's okay, like you have to ask Siri that, you know, you're becoming like a teacher and you know, a mom and like you have all these roles. So I guess like my question to you is how if someone were or wants to create something during this time, because you've been so successful in your creation process, can you walk us through like any kind of tools or tips that have helped you through that process where either you were uncertain or didn't know what the next step was, or maybe you felt
Absolutely.
really called for, you know, to get something out there?
So one of the steps is I always like to identify, who am I creating for? What's the bottom line message? You know, like what is their greatest frustration? You know,
Yeah.
some of the amazing products and things that we have out now that have made people wildly successful is the fact that they've created a solution for a big frustration. And so diving into what is your person's or your audience's big frustration. And when you're writing that book, address that frustration. Don't try to give them all the answers in one book, right? But think about how can you get them started. And so when you in your creation phase, think about, you know, how can I get somebody from where they are to where they want to be in small bite steps? And what would those steps look like? Does it look like a book? Does it look like a podcast? Does it look like a YouTube show? Does it look like a workshop, a workbook, in a journal, right? Some people, you know, your audience may be action takers and writers. You know, some of them may be viewers. They want to actually tune in. And so identifying, one, what is the greatest frustration? Two, you know, what can you create to take small bites to help them receive some sort of results, immediate results. When we give people immediate results and they're dealing in such great frustration, they gain a little bit of confidence and trust in you and your next product or your next service. So they're like, well, this worked. What else she has? Okay, now that worked. So what else she has? So I tried the book. Now after the book, you know, her newsletter was great. So for, you know, her newsletter is great. It provide great tips. You know, I watched her Instagram live. That provided more information. I read her book. That was good. I purchased her journal. That was great. I attended her webinar, you know, so taking them through the phases of the aha moment. And so think about what your end result is, and then think about what you want to create now. That's probably the most important piece. And most creatives and people who want to get into production think about, well, I want to help them change their life. That's, what does that mean? You know,
Yeah.
identify what that looks. Changing her life may be the 2 pounds that she's been trying to lose. Like, I love your last IGTV. I love her. What is her name?
Oh, the model?
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Laura Lee. Yeah,
I
Laura Lee. She's a plus size model. She's a body positive activist. She's amazing. Yeah.
And she said something that was so crazy. She said, even I think her agent said, wait, you look like you're losing weight. Hold
Yeah.
on. Like, you know, and so, you know, she found something to embrace. And now there's a world out there who says, hey, I want to embrace my pound that I've gained. And then there's also an audience who says, hey, can you help me embrace the pound that I want to lose? And so it's meeting our people where they are. And probably the most biggest problem that most creatives have is not understanding what that problem is.
And I love that you said that, because it's like you know, people might feel stuck right now because they're like, I don't know what I can bring to the table. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of like, oh, I feel so overwhelmed and the pressure and all this stuff. So what would you say to that? Is it like progress, not perfection? Is it getting out there? Is it just taking action? Like, I see you're always in action. So
And I set myself up to mess up. You know, I give myself room to make mistakes. Oh, and I try it. So, you know, it's not so much going after perfection, but it's going after results. You know, what kind of result did I receive from this? Did this help enough people? Did this reach a large market? Is there something I could have done different? Can I add value? You know, am I doing the most? So I love to stay in action because I am a recovering procrastinator and a perfectionist. You know, I own stock in perfectionism. I own stock in procrastination. Those were my best friends. I woke up with them every morning like, hey, girls, let's go. Let's find something to perfect and then let's procrastinate on it. You know, and so I have to do the opposite or else I'll get stuck immediately quick. And so,
Oh, so Coach Chris says a great thing about Lucinda is that she shares and helps others. Yeah, girl, you do. I mean, you overflow. I mean, you've helped me and you've helped thousands of others. So what would you say, I guess, so progress over perfection, like don't procrastinate. Anything else that you can tell people, like if they're not, maybe they're not, like the whole issue of like imposter syndrome or am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Like, let's talk about that because some people have something to say, whether it, like you said, in a book, in a podcast, in an IGTV or video or whatever, newsletter. Like, but what if they're feeling like, well, who am I? Like, I'm not a psychologist to talk about stress relief now or anxiety. I'm not so how do you, I mean, have you dealt with that and what has helped you? Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, even starting out, I got caught into, well, I have to be this kind of coach. You know, Allie Brown is killing it out there. I need to do what Allie Brown is doing. You know, and some of the new age, they don't know about Allie Brown, you know, but, you know, so I'm looking and I'm like, oh gosh, you know, I need my website to look like hers, you know, and I got to be like, because that's what success looks like. But I was looking at her and not the success leaves clues. The clues was that Allie was vulnerable. Allie was a giver. She gave out the best information and just compelled you to say, listen, I need more. She left you hungry and wanting to change, but she also gave you permission to feel free. So I was looking at her success that I need to drive what Allie's driving. I need to be where she's at in Vegas, you know, instead of what are the clues of success that she's leaving that I can use in my business. And that I was in an imposter syndrome. I thought I needed to do it this way to be successful that way. I need to have this kind of product. How about the only thing I need to do is just be me?
Yeah.
And when I got clear on the fact that I just want to get paid to be me and be free with that, have no explanation. No, I don't have a hellified pitch. No, I don't have we're not going to go in the elevator and I'm going to knock your socks off. I just want to get paid to be me. Do you need activation? Are you stuck? Let's talk. You know, and so I needed to embrace my own gifts and talents so that I didn't chase into that. And it's easy to get into imposter syndrome now because you see so much in your face. Advertisement of what you don't have and what you should be is constantly thrown in your face. You don't have enough money to do this. These people are on the beach looking like that. You know, your hair is not this, you're not this tall, you're not this, you know, and so it's so easy to get into that. But when you do that, you serve a disservice to the people who are waiting for you. When we think about, Kelly, we came here on this earth and we were given a specific portion of people to help.
Yeah.
If I am too busy trying to be Kelly Lynn Adams, I may miss all the people that I was born here to support and create. And so now I'm doing a carbon copy of you and trying to feed the people that really need me. And now what am I teaching them? I'm teaching them a watered down process of you. And so they'll never get what they may never get it. They may never step into who they need to be. And so it really gets deep spiritually. It really gets deep when we think about who we really need to serve. You know, some people are, you know, oh, I'm doing women empowerment, but why are you doing women empowerment? Because you think that's the wave? What about those teenage girls who are suffering and are pregnant and are catching STDs
Yeah.
or sleeping in their cars or another man's car because we weren't honest with our own stories and who we are.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I looked at and started to become vulnerable with my own story of, yes, I've made flaws and mistakes, and yes, I've lost clients when I decided to expose, I've been through some things.
Hmm.
And when I started to even embrace my own authenticity, yes, I was scared, but the women who would come up and say, man, you just freed me. I didn't realize that, for my story was part of it was incarceration, but for them, they're like, I've been locking myself up every day I leave my house mentally.
Mm.
I'm mentally in a lockup. So if you didn't share your story with Lucinda, I wouldn't be free right now. And so, that's, and I made more money when I embraced who I was. Imposter syndrome will cost you. When you're in imposter syndrome, when you're paying more to be a lookalike
Mm.
versus when you're who you are and you just get paid to be you.
Yeah,
Big
I love
difference.
that.
It felt good to get money and I was just Lucinda,
Yeah, and the
you know?
freedom. I hear you say
And the,
freedom too. It's like it's so
yes,
free. Yeah.
yes.
So someone's asked, what was the self work you did to not just get past the perfection and procrastination? What did you find? Were they like both rooted in something? Um,
So the question, it was what was the self-work that I
Work
did to
to
not
get
get
past.
to get
Yeah.
past the perfection? Uh I gave myself permission to make mistakes and not judge myself or beat myself up. Right.
Mm,
So if I sent the email and I didn't put a certain comma in, or when I went to reread it, because perfection will drive you crazy, then I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to call them. And I had more anxiety and stress just trying to follow perfectionism, or, well, I can't put this book out here yet because the story's not fully written. Whose story ever is?
yeah.
Or I don't have all the information, or like you said, I'm not the psychologist with the multiple degrees. Well, guess what? There's an audience who's not looking for a psychologist. Maybe you can lead them to one just by being honest about your journey, right? Or your
Yep.
story or your
Yeah.
how-tos. But some of the work that I did was just, I gave myself permission. I said, this is a year of F ups.
Mm,
And I'm going to embrace all the F ups, forgiveness, ups, face it, what all of the F's. I'm going all for it because I need to free myself. And when I did that, and just giving myself just a year, or you could give yourself 3 months. Listen, I'm just going to try everything.
yeah.
I would try all the things that you've always wanted to do, but were scared to do. Just try them,
Right.
and that's one part of the self work to get past perfection and procrastination.
Yeah.
Procrastination, more so, I lost out on a big deal um, as a startup entrepreneur because I procrastinated. Although I was worthy enough for the contract, I just procrastinated on hitting the send button to send it out.
Yeah.
And that just drove me crazy.
Yeah.
And mhm.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to two, like there's what, 7 billion people in the world, right? And
Yes,
like
yep,
you said, someone everyone needs you, right? Not everyone, but there's a
right.
certain part of the population that needs
That's right.
what you can only give or serve to others.
Yes,
So you may not have to have all the credentials. Like
that's
it's
right.
I love that you said it's like the authenticity, the freedom, the realness. When you think about, I guess, like self-worth and worthiness, what does that mean to you? And did you have to do any work around that, about like being seen or being heard, like being on
Hmm.
TV, being in the
Hmm.
media, or like even putting on these conferences, like, or writing the book? Like, did you have to do work around like the self-worth and the worthiness at all, or no?
Um, so my mother was a double psychology major. And
Mm,
so although we were in like grew up kind of poor. I hate saying the word poor because we were so rich and everything else. Like I just
yeah.
grew up unfortunate, lower class, right? She always had us do exercises to think beyond the box. Like think
Uh,
beyond the projects, think beyond what we don't have, think beyond. And so that mindset and starting to create, we called them creative visualization boards at the time. Starting at as young as 8 years old, she's teaching me how to meditate and envision and dream You know, we used to play, I was a talk show host. You know, I was the
Oh, wow.
newscaster. Like, hey, guess what? You won't believe what's going on in the cross house today. So my brother got his second whooping because he brought snakes in the house, you know. So I was the house spokesperson. And so
Yeah.
it was already practicing that kind of behavior. And
Yeah.
so even, you know, when I wanted to major in college, I was going for entertainment law because I'm like, no, I've got to be a voice for the people, you know.
Yeah.
So it was something, but I had to, you know, one, get out of my shell thanks to my mentor. So I got a mentor who
Yeah.
helped to guide me on my approach and my skill set.
Mm.
And, you know, even the perfectionism and the procrastination, he's like, don't worry about it. You know, you're thinking about what it, someone keeps saying, what was it rooted in? Worrying about what other people would think. And so when I got over it and got over people, it helped out. But I did a lot of self-help. I mean, I was reading Ian Levan's books at like 13. I was never in a
Wow.
relationship. Like, I was going to her. She used to have these meetings at City College, and I'm like 15 years old. And I'm like, come on, girls, we need to go and sit. I mean, they're talking about divorce and stuff. What? I'm
Wow.
15. Like,
Yeah.
why am I? But I was just feeding constantly. Tony Robbins. I still have my first Tony Robbins book. And so just, I always was into self-help development. I got to hug a tree right now. You know,
Yeah.
let me do some grounding. You know, so it was always that
So
kind of kid.
do you think that's a requirement, or do you think that's like kind of a non-negotiable, like the inner work, the self-work, the getting a coach or the mentor, finding someone that really pushes or helps you? Like, do you feel like do you feel like it's only for certain people, or only for certain professions, or do you think it's for everyone
So
across the board?
so I think that it is a non-negotiable for personal development.
Yeah.
Now, especially if you're dealing with other people and you are what I consider like a servant leader, somebody who is there to support others in your
Yeah.
content and your delivery, making sure that it's a clear channel that you can, you know, direct to them, because we can lead people all wrong, you know. And
Yeah.
so I do think it's a requirement, because especially in dealing with people, they're constantly going to pull on your energy, your information. They're constantly pulling on you. And if you're not developed in your personal strength, you can could be completely drained, and now you have everybody else's depression, stress, confusion
Yeah.
on your back. So it is a way to detox. I do think it is a non-negotiable, especially if you're in the space of people.
Mm-hmm. So another question for you: why did you name like your book and like the big ask? Is there a
Oh yes.
story behind that? Yes. Yeah, do you have a book? You have the book. You have the conference.
Yes, you can hear my book, The Big Ask. So the book, The Big Ask, it came from just talking to so many different women who, and I'm like, so why didn't you go after it? They're like, I didn't feel like I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to bother anybody. I didn't want to
Wow.
impose. And so I kept, well, why? Why not? You know, well, if you ask, what would be the problem? Are you going to bleed? You know, are you going to die? Like what? And they're like, no, but I never thought about it. And so the more I would push people to ask for it, and they seen that they were getting results, I said, okay, so you're doing the ask that you feel comfortable with, but what's the big ask that really, like Ian Levan says, makes you feel like you got a little pee coming out, or it makes your stomach knot up where you're like,
Yeah.
oh God, I got to throw up. That's
Yeah.
go for that ask, and see how that is. And so I was able to
I
write
love it.
write the book about it. And
Yeah.
then because it became such a great exercise, because it's a whole exercise, this book is like a complete guide. It started out as an exercise in workshops, then I did it
Mm.
in conferences, and then women were just like, I love the big ask exercise you did, we need more of it. And I said, you want more? And listening to my market, I said, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
put a book together, would you read it? Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell all my friends. Okay, and after a certain amount of times of hearing that, I said, let me put a book and give them something to walk away with, beyond just hearing it from the stage. And
Mm-hmm.
this has been a whole brand, to the point that we're even going to do like a whole Facebook and YouTube show around it, because
Wow.
it just pushes women to say, what is your ask? And then inviting people to give to you. The big ask is designed for givers, those who are constantly giving out information, constantly being the one of support, constantly the one that everybody's leaning on, but they don't ask themselves.
Mm.
And now for them to be in a position to receive is a big breakthrough.
Yeah, I know for me receiving it's tough sometimes. It's
Yes,
like,
it is. It
oh my,
because it's like, well, why first? Why you giving this to me?
you
Maybe,
right.
right?
Yeah, it's like what do you need? What's the catch kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Or either you don't ask for it because you're like, the last time I asked, I was let down, or the last time I asked, I might as well just do it myself. Or if I
Yep.
ask, pride and ego start showing up, and it's like, you asked, they're gonna know that you really don't have it. Mm-mm.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Wow. So now let's kind of shift gears about, well, let me ask you this first. Like what is the legacy that you want to leave?